What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're doing another one. We're doing a Film Club movie review for this week's pick. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll tell you. Welcome. You're here. You found the Filmstruck Film Club. Perhaps you're finding us through this video. And if that is the case, then welcome. What's up? I'm glad you watched The Ladykillers. I loved this movie. We'll talk about it in a second. But Filmstruck Film Club operates just like a book club. Once a week, I put out a movie, let's watch this. And then you have the entire week. Watch this film at your leisure whenever it makes sense to you. And then let me know what you thought of it. That's literally the whole basket of eggs, man. That's what we're doing. And so it's a lot of fun. If you have some films that you would like to share with everybody and you want us to watch something that you've either been wanting to see for a long time, or perhaps it's your favorite movie and you wish more people knew about it, check out what we've watched so far. If you have Letterboxd, you can check out Filmstruck Film Club, what we've watched so far. Go ahead and follow that list. I update it every week. Also on our Instagram, you can always click my bio and it'll lead you to this very list. But we've watched over 100 films in this group. We're having a good time, man. I'm glad you're here. We watched a great movie this week. I laughed my ass off. We watched 1955's The Ladykillers by my man, Alexander Mackendrick. Now, if you don't know Alexander Mackendrick, we watched a film of his a while back, The Sweet Smell of Success, starring Burt Lancaster and Tony Curtis. It was the film he made directly after this one, believe it or not. And this film, The Ladykillers, being his last film that he made with Ealing Studios. I think I'm saying that right. He made Whiskey Galore, Man in the White Suit, which also starred Alec Guinness, and then this film, The Ladykillers. Perhaps you're familiar with another Ealing Studios film. If you've ever seen Kind Hearts and Coronets, which is hilarious, then you are familiar with the studio. And if you aren't familiar with that film, maybe you know it as its musical version. The Tony Award-winning Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder is based off Kind Hearts and Coronets, where our man Alec Guinness, yes, Obi-Wan Kenobi, plays 8 different characters, all of whom are in the same family, and there's a guy who's trying to kill his way up to the top. That movie is great. This movie is great. This one is sitting at a humble 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was voted number 13 by the British Film Institute on its list of 100 greatest British films ever made. It won the BAFTA for Best Screenplay. It was Oscar nominated for Best Screenplay. Our magnificent lead, Mrs. Wilberforce, played by Katie Johnson, she won the BAFTA for Best British Actress that year at 76 years old. Fun fact, when they were making this film, they did not want to cast her because the studio thought she would be too much to insure because she was so old and frail, they didn't think she could get through the film. So they hired a younger actress. She died and couldn't do the film. So then Katie Johnson said to Alexander Mackendrick, I will pay my own insurance. I want to do this film so bad. And he said, no, we're going to get the money. They get the money. She does an exquisite job in this film. We'll talk about it in a second. But Alexander Mackendrick is such a good guy. He went to the studio and he said, you know, this may be Katie Johnson's last film. And it's her first lead role. She was mostly known, I guess, for theater and bit parts in film. And this was her first time being the lead in a film. And so Alexander Mackendrick thought it was very important to him to have her name above the title with Alec Guinness's name. So when the film did come out, the poster did read Alec Guinness, Katie Johnson, The Ladykillers. And she did, in fact, die 2 years later. So it was a very, very kind gesture. She only made one other film afterwards, and it was another small role. But it was just one of those things that makes Alexander Mackendrick kind of just really worth studying. He also, fun fact, in 1969, became the founding dean of Cal Arts, California Institute of the Arts, where he taught film and was a professor there for, 40 years or something like that. There's some really great material on YouTube of him. It's a documentary called Alexander Mackendrick on filmmaking. And just check that out. He is such a wise, sage man who knows so much about story structure and what to do with the camera and what not to do with the camera, how to work with actors. He's just exquisite. So let's jump in here. I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to spoil some stuff. So if you haven't seen this film, it is so good. It's not, I have not seen the Coen Brothers remake starring Tom Hanks, but that does exist. So maybe you've seen that, or maybe after watching this, you're going to join me and check it out, because I never watched it, but I liked this version so much that I'm like, hell, I'll check out Tom Hanks doing it. Let's get into it, man. So Mrs. Wilberforce is a sweet little old lady with a lot of opinions, and she lives by herself in a house at the end of a cul-de-sac right above a train. And she's looking to rent out her room. And at the beginning of this film, we set up in such a beautiful way the dark undertones, because before we ever meet Alec Guinness, we see him as kind of this shadowy figure kind of following her around. And you kind of get the sense that he's this bad dude and that she maybe has danger lurking behind her. Eventually, we do meet him as Professor Marcus, and he has these hideous teeth, really crazy hair, and he kind of looks like a vulture. And there's even one scene where he's got his elbows like back in his long gray overcoat, and he just looks like this vulture. But apparently, when he received the script, he told the studio, "Are you sure you didn't want to give this to Alistair Sim?" Who, if you don't know who he was a British actor who played Scrooge in a very famous film version of A Christmas Carol. But it was meant for him, and he wasn't available. So they gave it to Alec Guinness, and he basically dressed up and acted like Alistair Sim for this role, and it just worked brilliantly. Yes, Obi-Wan Kenobi is fucking hysterical. And yes, you just found out that we say fuck on this channel. So, hey, what's up? Peter Sellers of Pink Panther and Doctor Strangelove, one of my favorite movies ever, fame. This was like his first movie role, or maybe his first big movie role, I'm not sure. But he sure is a young guy in this movie, and the second he walks in, I just laughed. Because if you're not familiar with Peter Sellers, he is one of the funniest men to ever be put on celluloid. And so let's get back on track. Professor Marcus, Alec Guinness, he finds this room for rent, and he lets the little old lady know that he has some buddies that are going to be coming around to rehearse because they are part of a string quintet. And of course, when these guys show up, they just look absolutely like villains. They look like bad guys. The guy who plays Mr. Harvey looks like a bad guy. The guy called One Round, he looks like a bad guy. Mr. Harvey's got this hat, and he's so paranoid at the onset of introducing all these men. He's carrying his violin like it's a machine gun or something. And you come to find out that these men are not in a string quartet. They are, in fact, planning a heist. And they're going to use this little old lady and her house as a cover, and they're even going to use her in the heist, unbeknownst to her. So it's a really fun kind of madcap trying to get away with plotting this heist under her roof without her finding out, but she is rather bothersome and she's the kindest person ever. All she's trying to do is give everybody cookies and tea and coffee and whatever they want. But they're just like, please say thank you, Miss Wilberforce. The screenplay is just so good. It's so tight. Nothing happens when it shouldn't, and everything happens when it should. And everything leads to just like, oh no, now what? Oh no, now what? So as it unfolds, it's just exquisite. Once the heist begins, you think the heist is gonna fail all the way up until the end. And dude, how about that heist? When they're freaking out because she goes back to get her umbrella again because she always forgets her umbrella. And then she stops the cab because she sees a guy being mean to a horse, and like these guys who this heist was just a success. They're like, oh my God, this old lady's gonna fucking get us caught. She manages to get the police to carry the fucking money into the house. And it's just so funny, man. She's got such like a Mr. Magoo, Monsieur Hulot sort of like, she's all about manners. And she's also got like a Paddington vibe, you know, she'll give you the hard stare if you've forgotten your manners. She's just such a great character. And every time she spoke, I just cracked up. There's this great bit, I'm jumping around, but they wind up back at the house. She does in fact find out that she was used in this horrible way, and she feels very very bad about it, and then as she starts to scold these men, she also has like her little old lady friends coming over, and so the like volley between trying to deal with these idiot men and these sweet little old ladies, I cracked up. There's this one line, she's trying to get the women into the dining room so that she can really like tell these guys how she feels, and she says, Hypatia, I told you to go into the sitting room. I don't know why, but I laughed for like 5 minutes after that. So yeah, if you like old comedies, this one's very good. The turnaround, once it becomes about them trying to convince her not to go to the authorities and why, and there's this great scene where Alec Guinness is like scrubbing this washing basin, and he's like, have you thought about why 5 men such as ourselves would do something like this? Have you? And so the thing that I thought was so clever about this film is it's so unrealistic, yet you never feel like it's not real. They managed to really walk quite a tightrope of bringing this Looney Tunes black comedy to life. And as we get into it and it becomes, well, now we got to whack Mrs. Wilberforce because she's going to talk. But none of these guys are willing to be the one to do it. So the whole last third of the film is basically all these guys just picking each other off one by one until they are all dead. They don't fucking make it to the end of the movie. And they even tell her, they're like, if you tried to give this money back, they wouldn't want it. They wouldn't even want this money back because the insurance company's already given the money back and everybody's already happy. So yeah, what are you going to do? So yes, once we get to the end and all the men have perished, they've taken each other out, she tries to return the money, and just like they said, they don't want the money. And so she's just dumbfounded. She's like, they said you wouldn't want it. And she's like, well, shit, I don't need my umbrella anymore. I'm going to buy 12 that I like. Oh, man. It was just, her parrots are hilarious. Just one round, he keeps taking these compliments for his cello playing, and they're not playing these instruments. The music's happening on a record. And she's like, oh, you were so wonderful on that piece. And he's just like, oh, did you think I was? All right. Well, you guys, maybe I was just the perfect target at the right time, but this movie is so funny, and you really should check it out if you haven't. And I'm sorry that I just spoiled it if you haven't. Yeah. Maybe word to the wise, don't watch my entire review if you haven't seen the movie yet. But yeah, man, just like 10 out of 10, knocked out of the park. One of my favorite comedies ever. I can't wait to watch it again. A whole newfound respect for Alec Guinness, who I already respected just to the moon. He's the best. Yeah, man, Ladykillers, what a treat. I'm probably going to keep this ball rolling. We watched Monsoon Wedding last week. That was a nice, uplifting movie. This one was hysterical. I'm probably going to keep it light for a little while. I don't know. Maybe. Who needs to watch Come and See all the time, Not me. So, yeah, give us a follow on Instagram and Facebook at Filmstruck Film Club. Like I said, check out that letterbox list if you want to see all the films that we've watched before. You could kind of tick off the ones you've seen. Maybe hit me up if you're like, what the hell is Tuki Buki? I'll tell you all about it. But, yeah. So come on back. We'll have a new pick for next week. Groot and I are always looking forward to the next week's pick, and I hope you are too. Don't be afraid to hit me up and be like, hey man, I think we should watch this movie sometime, because then I'll give you a shout out and I'll be like, at Brian, who loves Toy Story, wants us to watch Toy Story. We probably won't watch Toy Story, but send me something that you think maybe is a classic that not enough people have seen, or a movie that you've loved your whole life and every time you mention it, people are like, I've never seen it. Send me those titles, because I love picking things like that for us so that we can all discover something new together. Anyway, I'm going to sign off. Groot and I are going to get out of here. Love you guys. Peace. See you soon.